happens to be that the Somalians are working hand in hand with the government here, committing the fraud and allowing this crime to happen on the taxpayer citizen here who's paying a fistload of money to the government.
Exactly. So not only are Somalians guilty of fraud, but the people who are writing the checks are just as guilty. In fact, they're more guilty because they wrote the checks.
Exactly. And so this doesn't have to do anything with someone being a racist or an Islamophobe. It's just the fact that fraud's fraud, and you don't like paying your state taxes here knowing that it's just going potentially back into the hands of a terrorist organization like Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
Well, if this continues, the Somalis are going to own every single building in Minneapolis.
Wow. Imagine that. Imagine a group of people coming up with a scheme to defraud the government to the tune of what you guys are going to see later, upwards to $9 billion, with the whole sole purpose is to buy up land with government funds.
And there will be literally 500 mosques here.
And now let's talk about Tim Walz. Do you think Tim Walz will be going to prison for this? And he's running for a third term right now.
So
he is currently not running for a third term. We just haven't got to it that Nick Shirley has officially ended Tim Walz's political career with this investigation.
My personal belief is that Tim Walz violated Minnesota Statute 3.971 because he did not, to this day, he has not reported the fraud to the Office of the Legislative Auditor, and that law says you have to report it. So even if it was in the news for months and months, he still had to personally report it to the OLA, and he's never done it.
And why?
He probably wouldn't report it because it'd be an embarrassment upon him and his whole administration when they're out to crack down on fraud. Meanwhile, their state probably has committed the biggest fraud in American history.
Why would Tim Walz know about the fraud but not report it?
So, because again, the Somali community all votes in a block, and he needs their votes because if you got they don't know how many Somalis are here. They say 80,000. I said it's way over 100,000. So they're all voting together, and that's a big number. And he's terrified of this racist Islamophobe label, and I don't understand it.
And just
wow, bro, guys! Breaking news: Tim Walz has decided to not run for re-election to end his campaign. Wow.
For several years, an organized group of criminals have sought to take advantage of this state's generosity. And even as we make progress in the
state's generosity or the state's willful turning the other cheek to, as I get, some people are painted to secure votes, but fraud is fraud, guys. Fraud is fraud.
fight against the fraudsters, we now see an organized group of political actors seeking to take advantage of a crisis. I don't want to mince words here. Donald Trump and his allies in Washington and in St. Paul and online want to make our state a colder, meaner place. They want to poison our people against each other by attacking our neighbors. And ultimately, they want to take away much of what makes Minnesota the best place in the country to raise a family.
No accountability, huh?
They've already begun trying to withhold funds that were meant to help families afford child care. And they have no intention of stopping there. Make no mistake, we should be concerned about fraud in our state government. We cannot effectively deliver programs and services if we can't earn the public's trust.
So why didn't you report it if you were so concerned about fraud?
That's why over the past few years, we've made systemic changes in the way we do business. We've gone to the legislature time and time again to get more tools to combat fraud. We've hired people we fired people who weren't doing their jobs. We've seen people go to jail for stealing.
Fired people who wasn't doing their job. So is he stepping down because he was not doing his job? Well, technically he's not stepping down, but when you see Trump's response, you're going to see he predicts that he won't make it to the end of his term.
Stealing from our state. We've cut off whole streams of funding in partnership with the federal government, where we saw widespread criminal activity. We put new locks on the doors of our remaining programs.
But you still left some locks unlocked.
And we've hired a new head of program integrity to make sure that those locks can't be broken. All across this state, Minnesotans are hard at work on this problem. Advocates, administrators, investigators are on the front lines defending the integrity of our state's programs. And I want to give a very heartfelt thank you to all of them.
Thank you guys for allowing the biggest fraud in American history to be documented and uncovered. Now, Trump had this to say based on Minnesota's corrupt governor will possibly leave office before his term is up, but in any event, we will not be running again because he was caught red-handed along with Ilhan Omar and others of his Somali friends stealing tens of billions of taxpayer dollars. I feel certain the facts will come out and they will reveal a seriously unscrupulous and rich group of slime balls. Governor Walz has destroyed the state of Minnesota, but like others, like Governor Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Kathy Hochul, have done, in my opinion, even more dishonest and incompetent job. No one
corrupt governor
is above the law. I'm guessing that's what that last word is. And here's the thing, right? This amount of fraud, someone had to be aware of it, right? On some level. How is it so many people know that opening up a daycare and having quote unquote low income people, which happens to all be for the most part for the Somali daycares, other Somalians, to apply for government funds for their kid and then funnel it to the daycare with essentially no kids, according to Nick Shirley. But let's let them continue.
Going about their life, not knowing that millions of dollars are being funneled through fraudulently every single day.
So fortunately, I kept at this. I started sounding alarm years and years and years ago that this was happening. And finally, I started to get some traction, and now it's out in the news, and now we get the U.S. attorney involved. That's all my groundwork, all that fraud. I uncovered all that. And again, had I been a state of Minnesota employee, I'd be a whistleblower. I'd be entitled to $1 billion. I don't care. I don't want the money. I don't want fame. I just want it to stop.
Yeah, I mean, he did the Lord's work, but I understand that Nick Shirley is getting painted as some political YouTuber for his political beliefs. But as everyone is saying, fraud is fraud, whether it's on the right side or left side, it's still fraud nonetheless.
And do you think it will stop, or what will put this to a stop?
Well, we're at a fork in the road right now, and we either go this way, which is the destruction of our society, literally the destruction. I'm not being pejorative or using rhetoric. The literal destruction of our society, or we stop this and we say, look, you either assimilate, this is America, you become part of our culture, you can have your own faith, you can do all that, but you become part of our society, or you get out.
Do you think they will assimilate, or where do you think this will actually go?
They will never assimilate. And again, one of the women Tuesday when we went to the child care, she screamed, "We're American citizens, we're American citizens." Well, the reality is there's a difference between being an American citizen and a naturalized U.S. citizen. There's a big difference.
Because a lot of these people have been here for 20 years. A lot of them are first generation born Americans. But for those that came underneath Joe Biden in the past 4 years, or those that are naturalized, they very well could get deported, right?
Well, so
especially those that came underneath Joe Biden. For how many more people did you see come into Minnesota when Joe Biden opened up the borders?
Wow. I mean, this is like a underlying issue of the fraud, as clearly committing fraud puts their citizen at risk for deportation under Trump's America, which I'm sure if he can find any reason to deport anyone committing crimes in the United States, whether it be fraud or other crimes, he's going to utilize every resource to do it.
Is that a lot?
10,000, 20,000. I mean, just it's been a mass influx.
And they've been here for, at this point now, they've been here probably 4 years. They probably had a baby. Therefore, they have an anchor baby here. And it's going to be a lot harder to deport somebody once they have that
anchor babies, yeah. Maybe 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, who knows?
Mm-hmm. And so do you think the only option is either they assimilate, which you don't believe is possible, or for them to get deported?
Yes.
What one do you think will actually happen?
I wonder what they mean by assimilate. Assimilate. Why do they keep saying assimilate?
I think it's gonna have to be a blend, because trying to deport all these people is going to be very difficult. The politicians, as you've seen, will rally. The bad politicians, the evil politicians who are benefiting from all this, they're going to rally behind and start screaming racism and Islamophobe and all that.
I do think that is true. They're going to say you're targeting the Somalian people. And would they be well within their right to think that? Potentially. I didn't see any, I guess, non-Somali establishments being covered. Not to say that there aren't any, but there is a window to say, hey, this seems to be targeted.
But we have to get these people who are, I mean, this can't continue.
I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but do you think they'll get a point to where, say, a federal agent comes into a place like Cedar Riverside and they start going out through deportations, and then the gangs, we know there's rival gangs inside of these complexes where arms are eventually brought up and people start dying and shooting?
I don't think it's going to get that far. I don't think it's going to get that far. Look, if you can find someone who committed fraud, get them out of here if you can legally do it, if they're not an American citizen, for sure. But as far as it becoming violent, I think that is a bit far-fetched. But let's hear what he has to say.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And so right now, the Minneapolis police are scared to death of doing anything to offend the Somali community. When you have the police chief in Minneapolis coming out and saying they're our neighbors, they're part of our society, and if you see ICE, call 911. Specifically, he said it to the Muslims.
Wow, if you see ICE, call 911. Wow.
To the Somalis. I mean, what is the message that sends that we're invincible, we can do whatever we want, Minnesota's ours?
And so you've gotten to the point where the
wait. The cops are saying if you see ICE, call 911. Would they stop ICE from conducting deportations? No, I get it, man. Some deportations, ICE have been a little bit out of hand. But going to get people who committed crimes, I'm all for it.
federal government, state government are in a battle because the state government want to protect the Somalians, while meanwhile the federal government wants to actually implement the law of the land, because federal law is more important and has more power than local and state law. How many people do you think?
Yeah, wow, man. I don't know. I don't know what the future of Minnesota is going to be. I can't imagine it's going to be too good, as they're already withholding funding. If withholding funding and they swoop up fraud while people are waiting on funding, and they seek, maybe instead of to put through the judicial process, which, I'm hoping all American citizens get their due process, but if they just seek to start deporting people, I wonder how that is going to play out in Minnesota. Let me know what you think should happen in Minnesota with the fraud, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.